What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos, mainly covering the NFL and NBA, but we'll also sprinkle in some NHL and MLB along the way. But with that being said, NFL season is 2 days away, 48 hours from the Cowboys-Eagles kickoff. So a lot to be excited about, obviously. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my playoff predictions. But today we're going to be doing some more predictions, NFL award predictions. So mainly everyone knows the MVP, the offensive player of the year. We're going to go through all my predictions, give some honorable mentions to who I think will ultimately win these awards. A lot of great candidates, obviously, for the awards. The NFL is super talented. So I had some trouble picking some. But overall, it was just fun going around, seeing coach of the year and, even some of the other ones like the rookie of the year, like who I think will make the biggest impact. So make sure, as always, to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. And with that being said, we'll get right into it with the MVP. And honestly, this one was a tough one because most people have Lamar, Josh Allen. I mean, the last two MVPs, last year's race was super iconic. And I don't blame you if you have either one of them. I mean, I have the Ravens win the Super Bowl, so obviously Lamar can play a big part of that. Josh Allen's super talented, and he proved last year he didn't need Stephon Diggs. But with that being said, I have my guy, Jane Daniels, win an MVP. And I'm super high on the Commanders. I like them. I think, they were right there with the Eagles. The run they went on, cannot forget that Lions game where they took down a 15-2 Lions team and were able to drop almost 50 points on them. That was truly incredible. And just Jane Daniels leading that team to the NFC Championship. I'm expecting him to have a similar year with Terry McLaurin officially re-signed back. You added Deebo Samuel. You brought in a stud left tackle, Laremy Tunsil. This team's ready to take another step. The defense is always going to be competitive with Dan Quinn. They got better towards the stretch end of last season. But Jane Daniels, just the versatility he provides, reminds you a lot of Lamar, and he's a little bit more polished than Lamar was coming out, given he's also 3 years older than when Lamar came out. So that kind of should be the case. But overall, I'm just super excited to see what he can do. The one preseason drive, they just went down Cincinnati's throat, not even passing the ball, just trying the ball. Jaden, the way he's able to use his legs, reminds you a lot of what Josh Allen and Lamar can do. I just think he has the weapons more so. I think Josh Allen losing Amari Cooper, James Cook sitting out most of training camp, not playing the preseason game, just a little bit of, weird fluke and stuff going on. And I know Josh Allen can carry a team, but the lack of support, I think some of those games might just come back to bite him, where there's some games similar to last year where against the Ravens or Texans where just no one can get open for him. And he doesn't have quite the MVP performances. And Lamar, he had probably some of the best numbers last year, one of the best quarterback seasons of all time, similar to Josh Allen, but still couldn't win it. I think he already has two. He's chasing that third. This could be the year. But with Lamar, you can never expect, an injury or something. And similar can be happening with Jaden, but Jaden Daniels is just so smart. I think he takes a similar year two step Lamar did and really puts the league on notice, leading them to a high seed. I mean, if they beat Philly in that division, I think you have to award this guy with the MVP. I think he's got the right supporting cast around him to make it happen. So yeah, start off bold there. But obviously some honorable mentions are Josh Allen, Lamar, like we touched on. I think Patrick Mahomes will have a better statistical season than he did the last couple of years, because mainly this award's a quarterback award, no matter how great guys like Jefferson, Chase are, Saquon Barkley last year. It's just no shot. Quarterback doesn't win the award. But with that being said, now I move into my Offensive Player of the Year award, and that is where I have my boy Jahmyr Gibbs. Even as a Vikings fan, I have no problem putting Jahmyr Gibbs as my Offensive Player of the Year. He's so good. Even splitting carries with Montgomery, whenever the guy touches the ball, he's so elusive, can avoid tackles, can just run through you, so strong. He's just so physical. And, the offensive line is still very solid. I know they lost Frank Ragnow, and that made hurt. But Jahmyr Gibbs can run to the outside, cut in, cut out. He still has Penei Sewell up there. He's still just so explosive. And entering year three, can only expect another leap from him. They really, once Montgomery got injured, turned to him, and he proved he could drive the car by himself just fine. Even in that playoff game showed out. He's just so good, so explosive. I think this will be the year. Can do some stuff in the receiving game. I think he takes another step in the offense. And, even if it's not as a running back when Montgomery's out there, still find ways to keep him out there in packages, maybe as, a wide receiver. And I remember they were exploring with that. So I'm expecting him to have an even better year than his first 2 years. I think they're really going to rely on him. And he's just so fun to watch. It hurts as a Vikings fan seeing him tear us up every time, because in week 18, Jared Goff didn't necessarily bring it. But Jahmyr Gibbs did, and they were still able to drop 31 points. And just the big runs he can pull off, he can go 70. He's just so fast. I think right behind Saquon Barkley last year and Derrick Henry. I think this year he'll lead the league in rushing yards, and I think we'll get a lot of touchdowns. And like I said, get some receiving work even when Montgomery's out there, because Montgomery's good too. But they're going to make sure you have your best player out there at all times. But with that being said, next up, defensive player of the year. Another one that hurts to put as a Vikings fan, I have Micah Parsons. I love Micah Parsons, and getting traded to Green Bay hurts because this makes the Packers very scary. And Micah Parsons, like I said, is a top 3 defensive player in the league. Always has a ton of pressures. Always has around like 12 plus sacks. But this year I could see playing alongside Rashawn Gary. He really hasn't played anyone alongside Dallas and was still generating huge numbers. Rashawn Gary can benefit from play with Micah, but you also have to respect Gary. But Micah's really going to feast, I just think, in this Green Bay scheme. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers defense was top 10 in EPA last year. Adding Micah will be a true game changer. And if they can beat some of the great teams that they failed to do last year, and Jordan Love shows out like I expect him to, I think Micah has it. I think this could be a year where he gets from like 12 sacks to like 16, 17 maybe, plays the full season, and just as motivated. Even last year against a Dallas team that was injured, just everything going wrong, he still put up elite numbers. I think this year, playing alongside, like I said, Rashawn Gary and these guys, I'm expecting a big year out of him. And it's unfortunate because I really like Micah, but once again, being in that division, seeing him go up against Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill will be a lot of fun. And you just got to respect that this division's the best division in football, if not the AFC North. But I'd go NFC just because the Browns aren't necessarily that great. But, Green Bay only getting stronger. It's going to be scary to see. And I was scared when I saw the trade. And, for a good reason. I have Micah winning Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, guys like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett will always be up there. I think this is mainly an edge rusher award. But, some guys you got to respect, some new upcoming cornerbacks like Pat Surtain. I mean, he's been great for a while. So maybe if he, puts up insane numbers like Deron Bland did with like the pick sixes, but then obviously, the consistency of Surtain is honestly unreal. So maybe he could be a sleeper. But this is mainly an edge rusher award. I think Micah will just get the forced fumbles, the big sacks, the pressures, and make this Green Bay defense top 5, which will boost his candidacy, I believe, to win Defensive Player of the Year. With that being said, we move on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. This is where I have GNT. I can see the argument for Cam Ward. I just think there's going to be a lot of growing pains in Tennessee. I think in this Raiders system, Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, they're going to try and get the play to action going. GNT's the clear RB1 there. They're going to give him touches. I think he's going to get a lot of carries, and this is his best chance to win it. I think guys like Travis Hunter, you don't know how much he'll play on offense and defense per se. So, I think GNT, like I said, will be getting a boatload of the touches. Maybe he could do some stuff in the receiving game with Geno, a very accurate quarterback. I think he's just in the best situation to succeed. Brock Powers can be up there blocking. It can also catch. So this Raiders team is going to be a lot of fun. And a big reason of that is getting this explosive guy like GNT that had one of the best rookies or one of the best college running back seasons of all time, rushing for 2,000 plus, leading Boise State to the bye. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, I'm excited to see this Raiders team. They're my sleeper playoff team. And a big part of that obviously has to be the production from GNT. I don't really think he'll bust. I think running backs, entering their primes are their rookie scale contracts because they do take a lot of hits. And GNT is going to get a lot of touches. And Pete Carroll, how he wants to play physical like he did with Beast Mode. This is his new Beast Mode. I'm excited to see what GNT can do. But like I said, yeah, Travis Hunter definitely could put up a case if he has 1,000 plus yards. But like I said, that's just going to come down to Liam Cohen's offense. He also have Brian Thomas Jr. there. So, and I know he'll get 1,000 plus yards. So just how many touches will he get on offense, defense will be interesting. Cam Ward, like I said, I really just don't know if I trust Brian Callahan. I think he'll make some explosive plays. But that offensive line, will it, be able to keep him protected? I'm not sure. He can scramble a little bit, but I'm really intrigued by the week 1 matchup against Denver because he's going on the road against the best defense in the NFL. That's going to be a huge test. So if he thrives on that, if he thrives against that, then he could thrive against anything. And maybe my prediction changes immediately because they will give it if it's close to the quarterback over, the special, not special teamer, but, the wide receiver running back, just a playmaker. So I'm excited to see, what they can do in Tennessee if it does pan out. And then some other sleepers I liked were Matthew Golden, obviously going to be Jordan Love's number one target. Very explosive, thrived with not the best quarterback play at Texas, and lack of arm strength, but he's explosive. Obviously, Jordan Love is not afraid to take shots. So that could be, a very fun tandem. And I do like that one. Once again, though, the Packers just getting, a bunch of my favorite guys. So shout out Green Bay for that. They always draft really well. But yeah, going to be excited to see what can be prevailed there. Next up, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm going to go with Abdul Carter. I mean, just watching him at Penn State reminded me a lot of Micah Parsons, and maybe it was just the number, Penn State, same college, but man, he was so disruptive in that Notre Dame game on the biggest stage, and he's going to get a lot of great chances in the Giants, and one of the reasons for Giants fans to be optimistic is not just having Russell Wilson, but arguably having the best front seven in the NFL. He's going to be playing alongside a stacked line with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. So he's going to, have his chances to thrive. I think he will be able to do that if he gets, just even a lot of pressures like Jared Verse last year, who I think was top 3 in pressures, maybe even led the league in pressures, only had 4.5 sacks, but just the way he was able to disrupt and get to the quarterback and make him throw off balance. And then we saw in the playoffs, he continued that success against Sam Darnold. And even against Jalen Hurts was making some big plays. So if Abdul Carter can just get a lot of pressures, maybe even get some more sacks, like 7 sacks, and just really help this G-Men defense thrive and maybe get to that top 10 level, because when you have a great front seven, that only makes your secondary better. So I'll be excited to see what Abdul Carter does. I'm really excited for him, and I know Giants fans have a lot of reason to be optimistic. Was my favorite pick, arguably, in the draft. Just is so special, and really, when I watched that Notre Dame game, I was like, man, he could arguably go number 1 overall. But with that being said, comeback player of the year. A couple interesting choices for this one. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, getting injured. And I'm expecting Jacksonville, obviously drafting Travis Hunter, bringing in Liam Cohen, Brian Thomas Jr. entering year 2. I think that could be an interesting case. But for me, it's Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, just what he was doing with Detroit before he got injured, it was scary, and that's why it sucked. Aiden Hutchinson's injury was obviously the worst, but all of Detroit's defense just getting banged up and still winning games. But then obviously it fell apart in the playoffs, and that defense did get exposed. Aaron Glenn tried to scheme it up as much as possible, but like I said, my MVP, Jane Daniels, just knew what to do to carve it up, made all the right plays. But obviously, getting a guy like Aiden Hutchinson that had 5 sacks against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is a good old line. He was just showing it all, getting, I think, in just like 4 games or something, like 26 pressures. It was unreal. And just kind of building, getting better each year. I'm excited to see what he can do this upcoming season. Obviously, he was such a beast. They were even talking if they made the Super Bowl, he could have been back. But having a full off season, I am a little worried just because it was such a gruesome knee injury. Maybe he gets off to a slow start, but I think he'll pick it up. I think he's just such a beast in this Dan Campbell defense. They're going to rely on him a lot. And I think, just with how bad that injury was, they almost, even if he plays at like 70%, just have to give it to him. But it will be intriguing. Maybe my guy, if he played last year, JJ McCarthy, has a great season. I don't know if he'd be eligible to win because basically his rookie season. But yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, once again, even as a Vikings fan, gotta give me credit. I'm not trying to be biased here. I just really think Aiden Hutchinson's the best. I'm not going to snub someone just because the team is our rival. You gotta respect them. Lions won 15 games with a banged up defense. Still, some of the guys won't be back until, November later on in the season. But Aiden Hutchinson should be ready to go for week 1 and will be a big part to that Detroit defensive line getting right back after the quarterback. With that being said, next up, we have the coach of the year. I got my boy Jonathan Gannon. For anyone that hasn't already seen my playoff predictions, I have the Cardinals win the NFC West. I'm just so high on them. The way they ended last season, defense. I think this year the offense can bring it all together. I have them winning like 11 games. I think 11, 12 is going to be really close. But if they're able to win the NFC West, where it's really anyone 1 through 4, I think that defense being at top 10 level, adding guys like Montez Sweat, I'm super excited to see you still have Budda Baker, one of the best safeties in the game. I think this Cardinals defense is going to play a big part in why they win the NFC West and why they get Coach of the Year votes. Because I was also thinking Mike McDonald if the Seahawks could win it. But ultimately, I just trust the Cardinals roster more. I think a top 10 offense, top 10 defense with Marvin Harrison Jr. breaking out in year 2, Kyler Murray just trying to put it all together. I think this has to be the year. Just, with Matthew Stafford's bad back, the question marks with Seattle, Sam Darnold. I expect him to play well, but, those last 2 games are rough. How will he look without Justin Jefferson and the Kevin O'Connell system? The 49ers were so banged up last year. They're going to be banged up entering this year, and just the offensive line questions. I think Arizona's the most complete team. So, we'll have to see if that pans out, but that's my prediction. Jonathan Gann, I think he did an under the radar great job last year. And the Cardinals were sneaky competitive in year 1. I know they didn't win a lot of games, but they played a lot of games tough. And last year, if Kyler Murray can just clutch up in some of those close games, like week 1 against the Buffalo, I remember against the Vikings, he threw a couple picks where the defense played amazing, had Sam Darnold rattled most of the game. So if he's just able to trust Marvin Harrison, use his legs when he needs to, still have Trey McBride, James Conner is one of the most consistent running backs, just find a way to get it done is all I ask for. And then with that being said, a new award entering the season, Protector of the Year. I was between Penei Sewell and Lane Johnson. I think the best 2 tackles in football, no doubt. But, I'm going to go with Lane Johnson. I think Saquon Barkley, the 2,000-plus yards last year, big part of that was how good the offensive line was. Jalen Hurts being able to, scramble around and, the tush-push, getting a bunch of rushing touchdowns, even though that's the whole offensive line. I think someone on this Philly team has to get recognized, and I think, having the best offensive line, I think they'll give it to the best player on the best offensive line. You could also give it to Jordan Mailata. Cam Jurgens was so good last year, but, I think it'll be interesting. But I think with the Lions, I don't mind the Penei Sewell pick at all. I just think, losing Frank Reich now, the offensive line is going to take a little bit of a step back. I think this is kind of just best player on the best offensive line that gives up the least amount of sacks, and Philly has always been recognized that. And the Lions also lost Kevin Zeitler. So could I see, a little bit of a step back from the Lions and just the Eagles being overall ranked? I think it's just going to come down to sacks and pressures, and I think Lane Johnson and Penei Sewell will be neck and neck, flip a coin. But I've already shown the Lions a lot of love. So got to give the Eagles a lot of love. Super Bowl chance for a reason. Definitely going to be, in that contention again. But with that being said, so yeah, those are my predictions. Let me know what you agree, disagree with. I'm excited to get your guys' thoughts. Or do you guys have any sleeper picks that I missed? But with that being said, the last thing I want to touch on was the last game of college football, week 1 last night, where a lot of hype. Bill Belichick, TCU, Carolina's rocking. The opening drive looked like North Carolina was going to win the championship. They just bullied, ran through TCU. And, the quarterback, Gio Lopez, made a couple nice throws. And then everything went off the rails. They went up 7-0. I think TCU went on to score 41 points. The offense could do nothing. Defense just missed a lot of tackles. And, that big run to open up the second half, you kind of knew it was over. But that TCU quarterback, Hoover, I believe his name is, just a baller. Had one bad, mistake on a pick, but what happens. But then Gio Lopez could complete his first 2 passes. Didn't complete pass for like another hour and a half. So it was a rough day for UNC. They end up turning into Max Johnson, who played okay, but it was kind of garbage time, really. So led a touchdown drive, 9 of 11. So I assume they'll start with him. He's a 24-year-old, been in college for a while, using up those COVID years. So overall, disappointing end to week 1, especially just for Bill Belichick. But if you're a TCU fan, you love it. Set the tone early. Could be a sleeper team that could be ranked soon because they won some games last year. I remember also they blew like a big 20-point lead. So if they can just hold on to leads, and just a couple of years ago, they were in the national championship. They have a great coach. But yeah, overall for UNC, very disappointing. Had legends in the house, Randy Moss watching. Obviously Bill Belichick's girlfriend, a lot of memes out about that. But also Michael Jordan, Roy Williams, a lot of legends came out to the game, and just kind of disappointed to see that blowout. I think the final score was like 48-14. I shut it off after. It was like, I'd rather just get some sleep than watch this after it was like 34-7. So with that being said, it will be interesting to see the rankings. I assume Ohio State will go to 1, given their win over number 1 Texas at the time. But yeah, like I said, Cowboys, Eagles, 2 days away. Who's not excited for that? Week 1, full slate coming up this weekend. College football week 2. Should be a lot of great games. We'll make sure to preview all that. But like I said, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, because we're going to be posting daily. And then once again, let me know in the comments what predictions did you agree with, disagree with, anyone I slept on. Obviously, if you think Lamar or Josh are going to win it, I don't blame you. Just comment who you think your full predictions. But as always, thank you guys for listening. Peace.